Yes, we'll be talking about the power sector now. Well, you do remember that it wasn't long ago, by the way, so you couldn't have forgotten so fast. But the president they gave that Democracy Day speech, talking about this midterm assessment. Well, electricity, for a lot of our guests who were here, they say, look, if that singular challenge is overcome in this country, I mean, or as well on the way to major transformation, both in terms of the economy and otherwise. We'll be talking to Mr. James Olotu. He joins us today. He's the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Niger Delta Power Holding Company. He also was a former General Manager in PHC, and before he eventually moved there. Morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll just check if we should have a background report about that, but we'll get to you when it is ready. But speaking about the power sector, and we do know that there was also a roadmap that the president launched some time ago. How would you assess our current situation with power electricity supply?
Yeah, I would say that first, based on a comparative reflection of where we were before Mr. President took over and what is the status today, you will quite agree with me that we've made significant progress. First, when the president took over, power supply was ranging between, say, 2,800 to 3,000 megawatts. Today, we can say quite clearly that we are at 4,000, 4,500 megawatts.
4,500. All right. Well, it was a passionate one for Nigerians, such that you have people who would disagree, even thousands who would disagree on just one item, even if it's a 5. For instance, when you say we've got over 4,000 megawatts, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, so how come we still have this challenge? Is it in terms of generation that we've got that over 4,000, or in terms of actual capacity to evacuate transmission and distribution?
Excellent question, because usually that's where the confusion comes in. The infrastructure development profile for Nigeria before Mr. President took over was very poor. And usually there is a benchmark between generation capability with transmission capability and distribution capability. Usually when you have transmission should be about 120% of whatever generation is at any one time. There must be room for flexibility so that you can easily maneuver and get results better. There's also that at the distribution end, the distribution should be a little bit also above what the transmission can carry. What we currently are playing is playing catch-up over many years of lack of investment in the sector. The governments have done tremendously well by boosting capacity in all the four areas: availability for gas, generation enhancement, transmission development, and even grid loop availability, and then distribution through the National Integrated Power Projects, which you know is a major infrastructure development agency that you have currently in Nigeria. But like I said, we are playing catch-up from many, many years of lack of investment in the entire sector. And what we now have today is that, unlike before, today we have 10 new power plants. 10 new power plants.
In addition to the ones we have, both
in addition
thermal,
to the ones
hydro,
we have, all thermal this time around.
All
from Niger Delta Power Holding Company, which is the company, the SPV handling the National Integrated Power Project. Now, these 10 new power plants are at various stages of completion. 4 of them are practically completed. Dates for their official commissioning by Mr. President have been announced.
Anyone to be commissioned this year?
4 will be commissioned this year.
What does that translate to when we have 4? Because you talk about capacity building up of these infrastructure. But for the Nigerian, like the young man and lady you saw there on that particular report, it is when you put on the switch that tells you that they've been working. So when that comes on stream, what's the difference?
Well, Olotu Shogo power plant, Sapele power plant, Girigu power plant, and Ihobo power plant would be about 1,900 to 2,000 megawatts.
Together?
Together. Now, because in fact, even Olotu Shogo alone is 700 megawatts.
Sorry, if I may comment, is that just generation.
That's generation.
So added to the about 4,000 we have now.
No. I've added to it. Part of these have been calculated in the 4,000 that is available because it has been pumped into the system. And what more is coming in from the available power plants that are also getting completed. And I also told you that before the end of the year, other power plants will also bring in additional units, additional capacity. You know, I told you we have 10, and all these 10 must bring in something this year.
What will be the total?
The total will be about 5,000 megawatts.
Okay. If we just go back a bit, you said something earlier. Transmission is usually 120%. Should be.
Yeah.
So what do we have now? If we have
a little bit less.
Less than?
A little bit less than what it should be. So what you now have there is sometimes you will have stranded generation power.
Stranded?
Yeah. Because you have
That's
the
part
power.
Of the stranded or the leakages?
No, stranded. It's there.
But it's different from leakages?
It's different from leakages.
Okay.
It's there, but because our infrastructure development has not reached that level where you have those redundancies, you may not be able to fully 100% evacuate that. But that is what, again, the government is working on right now in order to plug those areas through additional investment in transmission.
Okay. What kind of investment are we doing? Are we building transmission plants?
We are building transmission lines, we are building transmission substations across the length and breadth of Nigeria in order to take care of this. But you know, there is a time gap between when those will be finally completed and handed over and when the generation capacity is already available.
There are those who believe that if the states are allowed to generate their power and transmit it within their environment, it will make it a lot easier for the government to achieve this stable power supply across the country.
Actually, there's no law that has said the states cannot do that. River State has done it, has proven it, and they have some power that they have already put into the grid. Anybody who wishes to can, if they have the capacity. All you need to do is to get a license from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and that's it.
License to do what, please?
To invest in generation capabilities. But
Just
you can't
generate.
do transmission.
So what's wrong with doing the transmission?
By law, the SPR Act of 2005, there is only one grid, and that one grid belongs to the federal government of Nigeria.
Mr. Olotu, you know, in that power sector roadmap, which was launched, I mean, I keep harping on this, but
some years back.
Yes, it was said at the time that by December 2013, we should be able to have 14,000 megawatts of electricity. You think that is possible? Are we on course for that?
I think we will get close to 9,000, 10,000 megawatts.
By December this year?
By December this year.
9 to 10,000?
Yeah.
So why did we get 14? Was that being, what, clever by half or just being positive?
Being optimistic.
Optimistic.
There's nothing wrong in being optimistic.
Well, you have to, if you're being optimistic in this sector, you have to be realistic.
Realistic is what I'm saying to you. 9,000, 10,000 megawatts at the end of this year.
Not 14,000
Not
at the end of this year.
Yeah.
What exactly has been happening in terms of building infrastructure? Because that can actually help keep the faith alive and hope alive in the minds of Nigerians, that you've been able to change some of these structures to the extent that they can hold some of these that you've decided to generate and transmit ultimately to homes. So what kinds of structure, away from those 4 that will be launched pretty soon, we have 6 yet to be launched. That's just with the Niger Delta Power Company. What more are you doing in that regard to get to that almost 10,000 we're talking about now?
To get to 10,000 megawatts, like I said, those 4 will be commissioned. They are already on the grid. They are already producing power as we speak. All we are talking about is official commission by Mr. President. Now, the remaining 6, many of these 6 will already start being commissioned from August this year, as they also enter into complete mode. Some of them are currently under commissioning. That is under technical, mechanical commissioning by the engineers, which after satisfactory completion, then the Mr. President will not be required to come and do the cutting of the tape. But in the meantime, 2 of them are already putting power on the grid, even as we speak.
Is that what
but the commission is not completed.
The layman can call test running.
Exactly. The layman can call that test running, checking that all the equipments are working fine, checking that all the equipments are looking at each other and synchronized in the right way to produce the right quality and quantity of power, in the most efficient manner. Those are the things that the engineers call the test running. And some of them are already in that process.
When you say that some of this will be commissioned and handed over, and we do remember there was one that was handled, I think, by the Chinese company somewhere in Ondo State, where it was a gas plant.
Yeah.
I think, it was a gas plant.
Omotosho.
Yeah, exactly.
Omotosho is one.
And when it was done, it was commissioned. But for a long time, there was no gas to power it. Yet it was commissioned, and everybody thought that it was operational. Are we sure we're not going to face the same situation with these 4?
Very nice question. Indeed, that was the topic for a meeting that was held last week, Saturday, in the villa, with all the stakeholders in the entire value chain coming together to discuss the gaps, if there are any, and the challenges, with a view to resolving those. It was at that meeting that the gas people, the transmission people, the generation people, are brought together on the same table to discuss the synergy between these various arms. And it was at that meeting that it was then decided that, having known that the problems or the issues surrounding the completion of this project, when I mean completion, I mean completion to the extent that people can actually depend on the capacity that will now